Cheers. Hello, hello. Before we do anything, can I ask you all to take your phones out, please? Everybody get your phone out. I know these are the kind of events you're encouraged to put your phone away, but if you can all get your phone out for me and hold it up once you've got it, please. Put the torch on so I can see you. It's like a rock concert. Everybody hold their phones up for me. Right, okay. I need to wait until we've got more phones. Come on, folks, get your phones out. I think we should all do this. Just kidding. But okay, now what I need you to do, you can turn your... That looks really good. Can everybody unlock their phones for me? Everybody unlock their phones. Hold your phone up once you've unlocked it. You might need your face for it. You might use your thumbs. But everybody unlock your phone. Hold it up so I know they're unlocked. Okay, is that everybody? I think it is. Now I want you to pass it to the person that way. Everybody pass their phone. Come on, do it. Everyone pass their phone. And they've now got 10 seconds to look at your photos. Go. I'm kidding. Stop. It's just a joke. Do not pass your phone. Pass it back. Some of you shat yourself there. There's no better way to start an event than getting 900 people to be scared. You learned a lot about the person beside you there. Some people were very comfortable. There you go. Some people panicked a little bit. Oh, if only we could see their photos. Brilliant. Okay, I'm going to share with you, just to be clear, there really was no reason to do that other than my own sense of humor, so thank you for that. I'd like to start with my favorite quote of all time. My favorite quote of all time is from an absolute legend. His name is Macaulay Culkin. I'm pretty sure you all know who Macaulay Culkin is. The quote I'm going to share with you is not from one of his movies. It's from the man himself. He said, "I am yet to discover a level of enthusiasm that tops, holy shit, look at the size of this giant potato chip." That's it. That's my absolute favorite quote of all time. Why? It's true. I don't care what age you are. I don't care where you're from. I don't care, what you do for a living. Let's just put this out there. Let's just be clear. The thing that binds us all together as humans is the moment we reach into a bag of crisps and find a giant piece of fried potato. I'm looking around and some of the men are sitting like this. You know fine well, in that moment, when you find a huge crisp, a huge potato chip, what do we all do? You turn to every other person in the room and you show it off. It's the size of my face, Mum. Look at the size of this. And if there's nobody else in the room, what do? You get these out, don't you? And you take a photo of your phone and you put it on Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. Would you put it on LinkedIn? Probably, because it's a bit shit as well. And you fire it off. I shouldn't say these things. You fire it off out into the world, putting huge big smiles on people's faces because you found a huge potato chip. That's the first reason why I love it. It's not a mind-blowing moment. It's not a life-changing experience. But it's enough to remind you that you're alive, to put a smile on your face, to give you a lift. We call them glimmers. A glimmer is the opposite of a trigger. A trigger is something that maybe makes us feel scared, reminds us of a traumatic experience. But a glimmer is described in the psychology world as a micro moment of joy. Children see them all the time. Adults don't always notice them the way they used to because we've got so much going on in here now. We're so busy. The world is absolutely bonkers. Sometimes we don't notice the giant potato chips in life. The other reason I love it is because it reminds me of the world right now. Can anyone shout out a word that would describe planet Earth right now?
Water.
Say again? Water. Are we literally describing the Earth? The planet? I would say oofed. That's my best word. That's the word I would go with. Somebody recently shouted the word shit show. The world is crazy right now. Thomas said we live in the best time. We do if we look for it, but actually the world right now is bonkers. The world's crazy. There's so much going on. And if there was ever a time in our lives where we need more and more people to lean into a moment, reach in, dig deep, and find all the positive, the love, the joy, the exciting, the fun, the colourful, the productive, the creative, the playful, whatever you want to call it, and then pass it on or share it or welcome people into that moment, then let's be honest, it's right now. So, for the next 50 minutes, I am challenging you to treat my presentation today as your big metaphorical bag of crisps. You've probably never been asked to do that in your life. Your challenge is to lean into the next 50 minutes and pull from it something. Now, it might not be something you were expecting. It might make you laugh, it might make you cry, and it might make you a little bit angry. I'm okay with that as long as you are. The challenge is, whatever you take from this presentation, you must then share it with somebody else who's not here today. Deal? Deal. Brilliant. Okay. At 18 years of age, I did something that almost no young men in the world do. I decided to become a primary school teacher. Thank you. That sounded terrifying to somebody. I left my home in the west coast of Scotland in a little town called Troon. Has anybody ever been to Troon? Nope, didn't think so. It's very famous for golf. It's famous for golf, it's famous for chips, it's famous for ice cream, it's beach, and it's 37 retirement homes. Rock and roll. Brilliant. I left at 18 years of age and I went to Aberdeen University in the north of Scotland and trained for 4 years to work with children aged 3 to 12. I learned very quickly across those 4 years that I no longer wanted to be a primary school teacher. I learned that small children freak me out. They stink. And I hate them. So let's move on. One or two of you looking slightly concerned. I don't actually hate small children. I have my own children. That perhaps concerns you more. I have 2 kids. I have a son who's nearly 17 years old. He's 6'1". He's got long hair down to here. He gets his long hair from his mother. And I have a daughter, Ellis, who's just turned 13. My son writes music for Japanese video games. Incredible, so talented. My daughter, she likes wrestling. Wrestling and skateboarding, she's my best pal. So primary school teaching is my background. And I believe that primary school teaching is in actual fact one of the greatest jobs on the planet. I learned more working with children under the age of 10 than I ever have working with adults. Ever. I've been more inspired to live my life to the full working with children under the age of 10 than I ever have working with adults. It's their mindset, their attitude. You find yourself surrounded by the most creative brains you could ever imagine working with, and they're 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 years of age. Absolutely inspiring, incredible. It's the way they turn up on a Monday morning. They don't just walk into the classroom when they're 5 years old. They run, they gallop, they dance. And if you're new and they don't know who you are, it doesn't matter. They point at you and they shout, "Who are you? What are we doing?" And it gives you a fright. And it picks you up, and before you know it, it's Friday afternoon, you're going home and you've no idea what's happened. What you do know, though, is you're exhausted and you've had a wonderful time. I remember when I left education for a little while, I was thinking about going into the world of business, and I left the classroom and I worked for a little training organization for 6 months. And it was terrifying for me because I went to school as a little kid, then went to bigger school as a big kid, then I went to really big school to learn to work with little kids, and then I went into little school to work with little kids. My whole life was school. So to go and work in an organization was new for me. And I remember arriving on the Monday morning, the new guy. You all know what it's like. Even as an adult, it's exciting, it's terrifying, it's nerve-wracking. And I arrived on the Monday, my first colleague arrived, and I said, "Hi there, I'm Gavin. How was your weekend?" To which he replied, "Don't get me started." So I thought, well, I won't get you started. But what do those people do? They still start. And before you know it, you're involved in their little conversation of doom and gloom and negativity. The next guy came in, and I said, "Hey, how are you?" And he looked at me and said, "It's Monday." And my entire being just kind of went, you know, when you work with those little kids, they literally run into the room and they're like, "What are we doing? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Can we play? Can we go outside? Can we do this? Can we do that? Can we draw? Can we paint? Can we sing?" Wonderful. And I remember standing there thinking, what happens? What changes? What's the thing that shifts from when you're 5 to when you're considered a grown-up, an adult? And I decided right there and right then that I'm going to dedicate my whole life to finding out what changes. What is the shift that happens? And how can I travel the world and help other people to get that back? Because the world is a scary place at the moment. It is a bit crazy. It is a bit bonkers. But if you stop and you look around, it's also absolutely beautiful. It's phenomenal. And there are glimmers everywhere if you stop and you look for them. And kids have this natural ability to lean into the moment and find all the good, all the beauty, all the wonder, all the magic, all the learning, even during moments of real change. If you think about the last 5 years in the world, the amount of change, the shift that has taken place has been unbelievable. During moments of conflict, what do I mean by that? You know what it's like as adults when you're at work and you do not see eye to eye with a colleague. Hands up if you've ever fallen out with a workmate. Hands up, please, be honest, if you've ever fallen out with a workmate. We have a few hands up. Some of you are maybe sitting beside your friend right now who you secretly don't like. That's a little bit awkward. Oh, it is awkward. Right, I'll move on. But it's true. As adults, if you fall out with a colleague, if you don't like somebody you work with, it's very, very uncomfortable. It's awful. And we don't know what to do as adults. And then eventually somebody has to sit you down and have a conversation. What I learned as a primary school teacher is that when you're 3 years old, you get it dealt with. And I will never forget standing in the nursery with two little boys, both age 3. They were playing at the sand pit. Maybe that's the secret to life. Right there. There was a sand pit, there was monster trucks, and there was transformers. It doesn't get better than that. They were playing beautifully. And then all of a sudden, this little boy said to this one, "We're not best friends anymore." My heart broke for that little boy. But his response, I know. That was it. Nobody cried, nobody got stressed, nobody had to go home unwell. Everything was just perfect. But what was really magical was 7 minutes later, this wee boy came back and said, "Do you want to be best friends again?" To which he replied, "Yes, I do. Let's dig." And they had a wonderful time. Now, those two little boys at the sandpit remind me of the highest performing team in history. Now, the highest performing team in history are the New Zealand All Blacks rugby team. Now, if you're sitting there now thinking you don't really like rugby, it doesn't matter. What I'm about to tell you is not actually about rugby. But it is about a rugby team, the highest performing team in history. They have these extraordinary mantras that they eat, sleep, and breathe. They have an almost win rate of 80%. They're not the number one team in the world right now. I think they're currently second. They were third, then they were first, and I think they're back to second. But in history, they are the highest performing team ever. And there's a huge amount to be learned. And those little kids just have this wonderful natural ability to do what they do. And the mantra, the saying that they have that reminds me of the two little boys at the sandpit, it goes like this: "Stab me in the front." I love it. It sounds brutal, but it's not meant that way. Stab me in the front. In other words, if you don't like what I'm doing, come and say it to my face. Come and tell me to my face. Don't go talk to them about it and let it get passed around 25 people before it gets back to me, and then you make it weird. Just say it to me. We could be best friends at work, but you know deep down I'm not living by the rules of this organization. I'm not following the values that I claim to. Well, then you help me, you guide me, you teach me, you show me, and you lead me. Why? Because we're workmates, we're teammates. It's not about you, it's not about me. Park your ego at the door, because this is about something much, much bigger. Stab me in the front. I'll share a couple more with you before I move on. Follow the arrowhead. I love it. The idea that a spear tip has 3 points that face in different directions. But when it moves in one direction with pace and energy, it has a greater impact. But then there's my favorite one, and this is what I would like to share with you today. The Maori word in New Zealand is vakapapa. And vakapapa means to plant trees you'll never see. Whew, love it. Plant trees you'll never see. What a philosophy to live your life by. Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, but in a lot of the work you do, you will plant trees that you never see. That's the problem with planting trees you never see, is that it's in the words, you never actually get to see the trees. I've had one experience, one. And I consider myself very, very lucky, hugely appreciative and grateful, but very lucky. In your job, you might occasionally see the seeds going into the ground. You see the roots starting to take hold. If you're lucky, you'll see the tree starting to grow. If you're really lucky, you'll see the branches. If you're unbelievably lucky, you might even get to see some leaves. If you're one of the few, you might see some fruit. The one experience I had was in 2020 during lockdown in the pandemic. My wife and I and the 2 kids, we went out a walk. I don't know about any of you, but in Scotland, that's all we were allowed to do. Every day, walk. So we went a walk around Edinburgh, beautiful city to live in, to walk around, and there was a young family coming towards us, and the mother was pushing a baby buggy. She let the buggy go, jumped out in front of me, put her finger in my face and said, "It's you." And I had that horrible moment where I didn't know who she was. I couldn't place her. She said, "You changed my life." Now, at that point, my wife looked at me very uncomfortably. Because she's never said that. And I had this horrible, horrible feeling of, I don't know who this person is, but she clearly knows who I am. And then she said, "You were my teacher in 2003. Instantly made me feel unbelievably old. And then I remembered her name. Instantly. I remembered who she sat beside, the projects that we did. I mean, it blew my mind. I mean, she's walking about with her husband and her baby, and I'm thinking, I taught you when you were 10. Made me feel really old. And she said, "Do you remember the projects that you did with us?" I was like, "Yes, it was amazing." She said, "And I told you what I wanted to do, and you said I could do it. As long as you did this, this, and this, you'll be able to do whatever you want. And I went and did this, this, and this, and now I do that, Mr. Oattes, and it's because of you." Now, I know it's not because of me, but see, in that moment, I took all the credit, all of it. My children were there. I was like, "Check out your dad." I didn't. I definitely didn't do that. What I did do, though, was feel quite emotional. I could feel myself welling up. Why? How often in life do you get to see the impact you're having in the world nearly 20 years later? It's so rare. When you do have those moments, you need to grab on with 2 hands, shout it from the rooftops, celebrate it, fly to Prague and talk to 900 strangers all about it. Because it matters. So planting trees you'll never see, I would like you to keep this phrase at the back of your mind, please. There's a phrase that the New Zealand All Blacks use in line with it, and that is to sweep the sheds. At the end of a match, the rugby players clean the changing room, the dressing room, to a higher standard than how they found it. It's incredible. So that whoever uses it next has a better experience than them. I love it. Absolute mindset, absolute culture. It's behavioral, it's values-driven, it's purpose-driven, it's absolutely beautiful. So you keep that phrase at the back of your mind, because that's what that's all about. It's about how you turn up, and it's about how you make things better every day, and it's about what you leave behind. I'm going to share one more mantra with you, and then I'm going to set you a quick task. One more mantra, and it's my other favorite, and it simply goes like this: no dickheads allowed. I love it. It should be the #1 rule in every workplace. Imagine it was. In fact, I think it should be the first question at interview. Imagine you sitting somebody down for an interview and the first question was, "Are you a dickhead?" It'd be wonderful. Now, somebody challenged me on this recently and said, "The problem with this, Gavin, is that dickheads don't know they're dickheads." I was like, yes, they do. See, we've all done it. We've all been one. We've all made mistakes. We've all said something we shouldn't have said. We've all been nasty, but you didn't mean it. It was an accident. That's not what I'm talking about. We've all made mistakes. I'm talking about the people who know they're doing it, they're stirring it, they're causing problems. And I would love it. Hook them up to a lie detector test. Are you a dickhead? No. Sorry, you can't work here because this is a good workplace for good people. Bye, Dick. Be wonderful. See, when I think of high-performing teams or even successful individuals, whatever that even means these days, there's a question always pops into my head that I think they're asking themselves. Am I trying to be the best in my team, or am I trying to be the best for my team? I've changed one word. What about everybody in here today? Are you trying to be the best in your team, or do you want to be the best for your team? One tiny little subtle shift that I hope as you sit there thinking about that tiny little subtle shift, the more you start to realize it's neither tiny nor subtle. It's everything. Do you want to be the best team in your organization or for your organization? Do you want to be the best business in the country or for the country? Do you want to be the best in the world or for the world? I could keep going, but within every example, we make that shift away from into for. And what science teaches us, of course, if we shift away from into for with our thinking, the next thing that follows is the words that come out of your mouth, the conversations that you have with yourself. Therefore, the conversations you have with yourself and then your people go to a whole other place of togetherness, of inclusion, of team, of community. And of course, science then teaches us the next thing that follows is this: your actions, your behaviors. How you turn up, what you give off, your vibe, your energy. The best bit of advice I've ever had in my entire career was from a teacher who was at the end of her career when I was 18 years old starting my career. She said, "Gavin, whether you stay in teaching or not, the best piece of advice I could give you is that your energy will always introduce you before you do." That blew my mind at 18 years of age. Your energy will always introduce you before you do. In other words, how you turn up matters. How you walk in the front door on a Monday morning matters. There's a little bit that's often missing there, though, at these events. And that is the you that turns up in your own house later on Monday night. That matters more. And that's the bit that we sometimes we forget about. So, think about crisps. Think about planting trees you'll never see, and ask yourself, are you being the best in your team or for your team? And with that in mind, can I ask you all now to put your hands like this, please? Everybody put your hands like this. And just hold them up. And all I need you is put up your one thumb and one pinky finger. That's all I need you to do. One thumb, one pinky finger. And if you watch my hands, all I need you to do is that. That's it. Hands and wrists stay still. That's all I need you to do, folks. Seriously, it's all I need you to do. Nope, it's all I need you to do. We seem to have a problem. You've quit on me, sir. You're just like, I tried it and I failed. Everyone swap their thumbs and pinkies. Really, folks, it's not difficult. Right, stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing. Can I show you what I'm seeing? Okay. Some of you got to the starting point. I'm going to say that again. Some of you got to the starting point. And it's amazing how many of you then did this. And then this weird thing happens where some of you start nodding at your hands. You're like, it's like you're willing it to happen with your mind control. And then some of you, your tongue came out your face. Because that's how adults concentrate. And then I think it's fair to say, correct me if I'm wrong, most of us got to this point, didn't we? Yep, there we go. Yeah, and you thought, I'm just going to sit and do this. I'm in the dark. He can't see me anyway. Oh, I can see you. Right, hands up again, please. Right thumb, left pinky. Come on, folks, let's go. Don't you get your hands up in the air. Thank you. And then try. What's your name? Andreas isn't trying hard enough. Come on, folks, go for it. I love it. Some of you are still just doing this. Right, stop that one. Let's put your hands like this, please. Hands like this in front of you. I want one hand going forward in a circular motion, as if you're smelling the person in front of you. That's awkward. And I want the other one going backwards. One going forwards, one going backwards. Do you know what I love about this? Is how many of you truly believe your arms are going different ways. Some of you still think your arms are going different ways. Maybe you can tell me what this is. Do you know, we could put the lights up, put a banging German rave song on, and you know, if we filmed this and sped it up and put it on YouTube, we'd go viral. Some of you are still sitting like this. Isn't it amazing? Is it fair for me to say that that feels completely unnatural? Is that fair? Good. I love that. I love the fact that I can take hundreds of adult brains, and make nearly every single one in the room just go, nah, nothing. I love it. A simple hand-eye coordination task, because that's all that is. It's rubbing your tummy and patting your head, except you didn't practice this one at school when you were 5. I can give you a simple hand-eye coordination task, and hundreds of brains Nothing. It's incredible. So let's rewind 5 years. 2020, when the first cataclysmic event in 75 years hit planet Earth, and it stopped us in our tracks, and every brain just went, what? What is going on? But fast forward and we're here, and we've come through it. We don't need to talk about that, but we've come through it. But would you agree with me that over the last 5 years, and still today if you look at the news, just when we thought we were coming out of that cataclysmic event, the world went, no, have something else. Oh, have some more, and we'll make that very expensive, and inflation will go crazy, and there'll be this and there'll be that. Is that fair? It's just kept coming. And yet, we're here. We're still here. We're still pushing on. You're still doing absolutely extraordinary things. I wonder if you've actually stopped yet to look back and appreciate everything that we've come through in the last 5 years as humans. But if I can stop you in your tracks with this, then let's think about the actual challenges that you're actually faced with in work, in your business, and in your life. I'm a huge fan of positive psychology. I'm not sure if you're familiar with positive psychology. Regular psychology was meant to be positive psychology. It was meant to be the study of people who are flourishing, people who are well, people who are happy and joyful, and we can work out why. The problem is there was world wars, and there was so much trauma that psychology became a very different thing until about 20 years ago when people like Seligman, Csikszentmihalyi, Cope, all sorts decided, do you know what, let's revert back to that and let's start to study people who are flourishing, people who are happy and joyful, and let's try and work out what's going on with them. My hero of the psychology world, unfortunately he passed away about 2 years ago, was Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi from Hungary. Absolute legend of the psychology world. And I'm going to just be a wee bit inspired by him for the next few minutes. He found that if we're faced with a huge amount of challenge in our work and lives, good or bad, whether you like it or not, if we don't have the right mindset to tackle it, skills are important, cool, that's the easy bit. It's not easy, but this is the difficult part. To shift your thinking, to shift your mindset can take years for some people. But if we don't have the right mindset to tackle those challenges head on, that's when unfortunately we start to experience stress and or anxiety. Now, I don't need to stand here and talk to you about the role that stress and anxiety has played in the world over the last 5 years. My question to you is, does every single one of you in this room right now believe that you have the skills and, more importantly, the mindset to tackle all the challenges that are being thrown at you in your job, your business, your life, your personal life, and the world? I don't know what the answer to that is. What I do know, though, is that stress and anxiety are playing far too big a role in our daily and learning working lives. There are different types of stress, though. Put your hand up if you would agree with me that there is such a thing as good stress. That's quite a few hands, actually. Some of you not so sure. Did you know that stress is not bad for you? See, that splits the room a little bit. Stress is not bad for you at all. Stress, that's a fact. Stress is not bad for you. How you respond to stress is where it can go wrong. And my goodness, it can go wrong. Really wrong. Terrible. But there is such a thing as good stress. The scientific term is a natural improvisational quality. Winging it to you and me. But the reality is, it can be a good thing. Stress can excite you, it can energize you, it can lift you, it can scare you, but it can scare you into taking really, really positive action. Making positive decisions, life-changing decisions. I think the example that popped into my head there of good stress was when I was training as a teacher. When you train as a teacher in Scotland, it's a 4-year university degree, and in your last year, you're in school almost all year on a work placement, and you get your own class for most of the year. And twice throughout that year, your university lecturers, your tutors, will turn up unannounced. They'll just walk into the room and watch you teach. And really what they're doing is they're signing you off, yes, you're good to be a teacher. After 4 years, on you go. And I was in the physical education hall, the sports hall, the PE hall. And I was about to start a 40-minute volleyball lesson. As you can see, I'm a natural athlete. Whatever. And I was about to start the 40-minute volleyball lesson, and in she came. The top lecturer, the scary one. And she walked in with a big red folder, And she just looked at me and she said, pretend I'm not here. I can see you. I can see you with my eyes. I can hear you. I'm absolutely terrified. And in that moment, I considered doing something that I had never considered before. Now, let me ask you, have any of you ever been in a situation at work where you're so stressed, so panicked by something that you considered a fake faint? Hands up if you've ever considered pretending that you've collapsed. See, I'm not seeing any hands. I just thought, Gavin, if you just shut your eyes and... Normally I'd throw myself on the ground, but I've got a prolapsed disc at the moment. I do apologise. But usually a bit more energetic. But I thought, just shut your eyes and collapse on the ground. They'll take you away, Gavin. They'll take you out the building. You're not going to get your degree, but you'll never see these people again. Now, I didn't do it because I'm afraid of my mother. My mother's a PE teacher from Glasgow that smokes cigars. Have any of you ever seen a television program called Glee? Yeah? The PE teacher, Sue. That's my mum. If any of you don't know what we're talking about, you can talk about it later over drinks and Google it, and you'll be terrified as well. So I didn't faint. Instead, something in here, just like a switch went, and I think I taught the best lesson I've ever taught. Those kids would have won the Olympics. Maybe not for volleyball, maybe for fainting, but it would have been amazing. So there is such a thing as good stress. Now again, there's an awful side to stress. I know that, and we don't need to go into that today. I've experienced it. I've had three nervous breakdowns in my life. 3! It's in my books. I talk about it. I'm very open about mental health. And speaking of mental health, Thomas mentioned it. Based on the number of you in here right now, there's at least 50 of us in here right now that are not okay. Based on all the recent stats and all the recent facts, all the information from the Office of National Statistics, the NHS back in the UK, all sorts, there's at least 50, maybe more, in here who are not okay. And I've been there. I know what it's like. The most recent experience that I had was only in 2023. Everything was great in my life. Everything was wonderful. Business was good. My books were on the bestsellers list. My family were wonderful. And then one day, I started to receive letters in the post, handwritten, from my dad. Now, you might sit there now and think, well, that's lovely. My dad's been dead for 13 years. Unfortunately, somebody who was very unwell was pretending to be my dad. And unfortunately, it broke me. Something in here that was it. Grief, anxiety. Couldn't leave my house. 4 months. The police were involved. It went on and on and on. Long story short, that person ended up in hospital. Awful experience. We had to hide it from the kids. But it made me incredibly unwell. Why am I sharing this with you? Because you never know what's going on behind the scenes. Your colleagues, your team, the person sat beside you right now, you have no idea what's going on in their life. So let me repeat something from earlier. If there was ever a time in our lives where we need more and more people to lean into a moment and find all the good, the love, the positive, the excitement, the joy, the fun, and share it, or welcome people into these moments and pass it on, then let's be honest, it's right now. Because the world needs it right now. There is another side to stress. I'm going to call it silly stress. Now, based on what I've just told you about my own experiences, I would never call stress silly or any type of mental health. What I mean by silly stress is that the moment is silly, but we call it stress. We label it as stress, but it's not stress. It's like when you come home from work one day and you tell your wife or your husband or your partner, oh, John at work, oh, he made me so stressed, right up to here. Oh. Were you stressed or were you just pissed off? Are you stressed or are you just a little bit annoyed? But we so often use the word stress when we shouldn't use it. Because if you're stressed up to here, you need to go and see a doctor. So let me explain. Being stuck in traffic. Hands up if you love being stuck in traffic. There's 3 of us. Yes. 3 of us. I love it. 45 minutes maximum, though. Why 45 minutes? Because that's how long all the best albums in the 90s lasted. Get an extra one in before you get to work that day. Magic. Next time you're stuck in traffic, I have a challenge for you. Love it. So it means that many of you literally just did this. No. You didn't even think about it. I want you to love it. I love it. But that's a decision. It's a mindset. That's the beautiful thing about it. You just get to choose. And then once you've decided you're going to love it, I want you to look at the people sitting in the cars around you. Look how angry they are. Oh, they're so frustrated. And notice they're on the phone. I read a fascinating article recently that said the first 2 responses from a human now when we're stuck in traffic is we get annoyed and we make a phone call. They're connected. At a subconscious level, you make the phone call because at a subconscious level, there's a voice in here saying, I shouldn't be the only person to feel like this. And you pass it on. Your loved ones and colleagues are all waiting by a phone, hoping and praying that you're about to call with your life-changing news. They can't wait to hear it. You're passing on the wrong thing. It's the opposite of the crisp. It's the anti-crisp. That's clever. Somebody write that down. That's really clever. Genuinely, I need to make a note of that. Make a note of that. It's the anti-crisp. You're passing on the wrong thing. You're sharing the wrong moment. It's like when you've been stuck in traffic, you eventually get to work, you're so frustrated, you're so angry, you walk in and you tell all your colleagues about a shit 11 minutes that you've had. 11 minutes! Put your phone down and shut your face and enjoy your 11 minutes. Love your 11 minutes, because as adults, some of us don't know how to do nothing anymore. We don't know how to just stop and just be, because we're so busy all the time, we don't know how to stop. And this is part of the problem. I wonder how many miles you've scrolled with your thumbs this year already. Imagine 1,000,000 years from now how big thumbs are going to be. 5 million years from now, we're just going to be thumbs. Thumbs that roll about on the ground. Some of us are still sitting with our thumbs, by the way. Speaking of thumbs, but our thumbs will be like big paddles. And we'll roll about and we won't be able to look at each other. I wonder how many of you go to your bed at night, maybe with a partner, and do some scrolling. So romantic. And then you wake up in the morning, start the day with, some scrolling. Some of us don't know how to just be. The second best bit of advice I've ever had, do less, be more. That'll mean different things to different people. Do less, be more. I'm going to let that float for a moment. I don't know what I'm doing right now, but I feel like it's floating. Let me give you another example of silly stress. Putting fuel in your car. We'll go with pounds just because I'm from Scotland. I wonder if you've ever done that thing where you put in 20 pounds of petrol in your car, but actually what you do is you put in 20 pounds and 1 pence. We all know how that makes us feel, don't we? It's awful. I remember seeing a lady in the petrol station in Edinburgh. She was going for 30 pounds, and I knew this because she'd stopped at 29.95 for a break. She was preparing for the final push. And this is what happened. 29.95. I'm her, by the way. I'm reenacting it for you because I'm a pro. 29.96. 97. I think you'll all agree at this moment. Her control, first class. Excellent. Ninja. Brilliant. 29.98. 29.99. That's when you bend your knees a little bit, isn't it? Some of you won't know this. Some of you won't have realized you bend your knees at that point. Some of you will try and fill your car up soon with straight legs. You'll fail. Loser. What happened to this woman? 30 pounds and 4 pence. 1 and 2 pence. Awful. 4 pence. Amateur. But it was her response that I found interesting. She took a hand off the nozzle of the fuel pump. She took a hand off and did this. Oh my God! I'm thinking, what's this? What is that? What's going on with your face? I didn't know what to laugh or be scared, so I carried on putting fuel in my car. I should have clarified that. I wasn't just waiting around petrol stations. Maybe a little bit, if I'm being honest. Turn round, she's now going for £40. Because that's what some of you do, isn't it? You missed 30, so we'll go for 40. What's wrong with 31? Oh no, 40. Anybody that's interested? She missed 40 as well. For anybody that's worried about her, she got 50. On the dot, £50. Boom. She was over the moon. As she drove away, she nodded. Nodded at the fuel pump as if to say, got you. Not going to ruin my day, 4 pence. And off she drove, happy. Brilliant. There's loads of moments like this in life. Now, she might be one of them, and by them, I mean them who have several of those moments in their day. She spent £20 more than she needed to spend and spent 3 minutes angry. Now, you could argue with me now and say it's just a silly 3 minutes. It's a silly 3 minutes. 3 minutes of anger and frustration. Like I say, she could be one of them who has lots of 3 minutes of anger. Some 10-minute moments, 15, 20, 30, 40. Maybe you've met these people who are just angry about everything all the time. Frustrated, irritated about stuff that doesn't matter. The stuff that doesn't matter. The secret to this lives within your toilet roll holders at home. Yeah? Toilet roll holders. If you don't have a toilet roll holder, imagine you have a toilet roll holder and stop putting your toilet roll on the radiator. But it keeps it warm, Gavin. It's revolting. Let's imagine there's a toilet roll holder here and there's a cardboard tube on it. Some of you are furious already because someone else should have changed that. Let me reword that. I'll say that again. He should have changed that. Guys, lads, I know. Imagine you've changed the toilet roll. Think for me. Does your toilet roll hang over and away from the wall or in towards the wall? Hands up for over and away. Oh, that was some fast hands. Some of your hands were up before I'd even finished the question. And some of you made a face as if to say, and there's no other way. There's no other way. And even as I'm saying that, I can see some of you going, oh, there is no other way. But there's the other way. Some of you going, no. But there's the other way. Somebody said to me recently, it can't hang that way. It's too close to the wall. I was like, well, it can. And then he said, no, but you'll hurt your knuckles. How fast are you reaching for the toilet roll, mate? It's really weird. But there's another way. It can go that way, it can go that way. There's different colors, different patterns. There's recycled material. I mean, I could keep going. Just because you don't like it doesn't make it wrong. Just because it's not the way you've always done it. It's like your jobs. There is always a different way. It might be new, it might be different, it might be strange, it might be uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean that the person is wrong. There's one or two of you looking at me going, it does. And still, there's a couple of you doing this. From this day on, everywhere you go in life, turn toilet roll around. Some of you do that already, don't you? I bet there's people in here when you go to other people's houses. Oh, there is. I can feel it in the room. Some of you turn other people's toilet roll around, don't you? Hands up if that's you. Stand up. Everybody that does that, stand up. Look, there they are. Look how happy they are to tell you. There's no, do not clap. We're putting the lights up on them. You're sitting. You're still standing. You're like, it's me, everyone. This guy. I want you all to do it from now on. And one day somebody will say to you, is it you? And that's a great question because you can say, is it me? What? And then they have to say it like it's an actual thing. Is it you that keeps turning my fucking toilet roll around? I don't normally say fuck. Thomas said it first, so that means it's okay for me to say it. Just putting that one out there. If somebody swears before you, it makes it okay. That's the rules. I'm also Scottish, so it's fine. Every day, turn it. And one day somebody will say, is it you? And you can say, is it me what? And then they have to say it. Is it you that keeps turning my toilet roll around? Now, it's up to you what you say to them, but it's in that moment you'll realize, I'm right. There are far too many things in life, far too many things at work and in the world that should never frustrate you and irritate you and annoy you to the point where it changes who you are. Now, that sounds quite dramatic, but think about it. I said it earlier. If you let something get in here, it changes what comes out of here. If you let something get in here, it changes what comes out of here and then what comes out of here. So some little silly thing like being stuck in traffic can sometimes be enough for you to then walk into work on a Monday morning and ruin it for everybody else because of what you give off. Think about the best teacher you've ever had at school as a child. They just had to walk into the room and you knew it was going to be a great day. Now think about the worst. They just had to walk in and you knew. So who are you? How are you turning up? What are you giving off? That's 3 silly things. Being stuck in traffic, spilling your fuel by 1 or 2 pence, and which way your toilet roll faces. What if we flip this on its head? What if you're not being challenged in your life and in your work right now, and you still don't have the right mindset? Well, then you switch off and you stop caring. You become apathetic. You might have worked with people like that. They're always late. They don't turn up at all. When they get a bit of a runny nose, they take a week off. There's a good name for them. Mood hoovers. It's different from being bored. Boredom sets in when you know you've got the skills. You know you've got the mindset. The problem, you're not being challenged. That's your job. Just so you know, that is your responsibility. As an adult, it is your responsibility to make sure that you're being challenged at the right level so that you don't get bored in your job. This started when you were a kid. I want you all to think back to when you were 7 years old and your teacher handed you a reading book that you'd read the year before with the previous teacher. How did that make you feel? I'll tell you how it made the kids feel when I made that mistake as a primary teacher. Furious. Why were they furious? Because at the age of 7, you want nothing more than to be moved up a reading level. You want all your classmates to know about it, and you want to go home to your mum, your dad, or whoever it was that you lived with, hand them that book and see that look of pride on their face. Every day as a primary school teacher, my mind was blown by the levels of excitement, passion, drive, energy, joy, wonder from these little kids. Every day. The cues that would stand at your table as the teacher. Asking for help. Kids are brilliant at asking for help. Do you know who's not very good at asking for help? Us. Last year, after what happened, in 2023, after what happened to me and my family, I asked for help. It's the best thing I've ever done. We all need to ask. I don't want anyone working in my business that thinks they can't ask for help. For me, that's a real skill to have, to be able to ask for help. It's a wonderful thing to have in your organization. The other reason they stand is to show off their work. The line is, I'm finished, what's next? You could be talking to another teacher and they shove their book on your face. You're like this. You're on there like, look at my work, look at what I've achieved. And they're desperate to move on. Every day they blew my mind. There is a problem, though, with being that age. And that problem is we stop being that age. And do you know what happens to some of us? We grow up. And do you know what happens to some of us? Some of us actually turn into grown-ups. Now, it's up to you how you spell the word grown in that moment. I'll let that one float for a minute. But it's entirely on you. Some of us grow up and we just become society. And what I would say is that there's far too many grown-ups in the world right now who have lost what I call your wee piece of magic. Your little piece of magic. That sounds a bit cheesy and a bit corny, your wee piece of magic, your little piece of magic. But every time I talk about your little bit of magic, you will know exactly what I'm talking about. You will feel it right in here. You know what your little bit of magic is. You know what you bring to the party. You know what makes you special. You know what you can bring to the workplace. And as you sit there right now, you'll know better than anyone else if your magic is shining bright. And maybe more importantly, you'll know if it's not. And that will hurt for some people. Because out of the amount of you in here right now, guess what? Some of us don't feel so good. Some of us, that flame in here is not burning as bright as it should right now. So I'm going to repeat myself. If there was ever a moment in our lives where we need to lean in, Reach in and find all the good, the positive, love, the exciting, the joyful, the fun, the creative, the playful, the energizing, the productive, the creative, whatever you want to call it. Pass it on and welcome people in. It's right now. Let me explain what I mean by your wee piece of magic. My son. I remember, I think it was about a week before his 5th birthday, 4 o'clock on a Saturday morning. I woke up to the sound of him screaming, "Dad, Dad, Dad." I got the fright of my life. I ran out and he came running out of his bedroom. And I looked at him and I said, "What is it?" And he put his hands like this and he said, "I know why they're called eyeballs." That was it. And then he ran back to his bed and fell asleep. Never told me why they're called eyeballs. I can guess. That for me is a moment of magic. Let me explain. 4 o'clock in the morning, it's irrelevant. He's only 4. He woke up and had a moment of discovery. That's great, but it's not the moment of magic. The moment of magic came next. He shared it. Because that's what you do when you're 4. You learn something new, you share it. It doesn't matter how big it is, how exciting it is, or how dull it is, you share it. Because you're 4. But because you're 4, you don't just share it. You share it. You share it from here with heart, with passion, with excitement, with magic, with wonder. And it's beautiful and it's infectious. Why am I telling you this? Because how many times as an adult are we encouraged to share best practice, share your knowledge, share experience, share your story? And how many of you are doing it from here with heart, with passion, with excitement, with magic and wonder? I read a thing recently that the art of sharing best practice is dying because adults are just too busy. We did a bit of research into that. Do you know what people are too busy doing? Being busy. I don't even know what that means. What I think it means is that you and I live in a time when busyness is being mistaken for doing a really good job. They're busy. They're on it. Doesn't mean anything. I'll give you one other piece of magic and then I need to wrap up. We were having dinner one night and there was broccoli on the plate. I don't like broccoli. It's the only thing I don't like. And my son, who was 4, leant over, picked a bit off my plate and said, "You should eat your vegetables." And I said, "You should stop touching my food." And he said, "Dad, broccoli is great fun." I'd never heard that sentence before. I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "It can be things." And I thought, oh, he's going to tell me broccoli looks like trees, right? We're on the right lines. But he was 4, so he was streets ahead. He said, "Dad, see this piece here? Imagine it was summertime." In fact, no, Dad. Autumn. That's genius. And how you will eat broccoli for the rest of your life. That, for me, is a moment of magic. It's amazing how kids can just do that. They can take anything they want, anything, and just transform it into anything they want. Anything. 3 reasons why. 1, they always want things to be more fun and more exciting. 2, they believe things are possible. And 3, they know it's worth the effort in the long run. That making things more fun and more exciting. They do it all the time. You know, they go outside to build a fort in the garden, a den in the garden, even though somebody's told them, but it's going to rain in an hour. See, that for me, that sums up the whole world right now. The amount of adults who have made a shift in here and here from being somebody who would always go out and play in the garden to becoming somebody who always thinks, says and feels, but it's going to rain in an hour. Let's look at those 3 things through the eyes of us adults. 1, do we want things to be more fun and more exciting? I hope you do. 2, do you believe things are possible? See, that's hard if you're an overthinker. Hands up if you're an overthinker. That's a lot of us. Hands up if you ever overthink things so much that you begin to overthink the fact you're overthinking. Oh, there's a lot of you. So not as many hands there because some of you are thinking about it. You'll be the ones that wake up at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning thinking, I don't know if I should have put my hand up or not. I'll email myself. But as adults, when somebody says it will be worth the effort in the long run, we know what that means. That means that in the short term, we're going on another journey. A journey of growth. Another one. Another journey of change, everybody. Woo! When are you not on journeys of change and growth? We're always on journeys of change and growth. Thomas spoke about it. Change is the only constant. It's just whether we embrace it or not. But when I talk about your wee piece of magic, what I'm talking about is mindset. And the beautiful thing about mindset is it's completely and utterly free. It costs you nothing. Like Mondays. Mondays are a seventh of your life. The amount of people who hate Mondays because it's Monday, it doesn't mean anything. Millions of people spend a seventh of their lives less happy because of Mondays. Some people 2/7 because of Sundays and Mondays. Why Sundays? Mondays. It's unbelievable. It's just a mindset. It's just an attitude. And like I say, the beautiful thing about mindset is that it's absolutely free. So then when we hit the challenge head on, whether you like it or not, whether you enjoy it or not, with the right mindset, that's when we're in flow. When you're relaxed, you're happy, you're focused, and you're having fun. And that fun piece matters. I wonder if you're having enough fun. Are you all familiar with the game hide and seek? Do you all know that game? You'll have a version of it where everybody goes and hides and you cover your eyes and you count and then you have to go and find them. Have you all played that? I wonder when the last time was you played that with your colleagues. Have you seen this building? I tried to find a toilet earlier and I got lost for an hour. You might be thinking of a colleague who's always playing a version of hide. That's a different game. They're just shit at their job. It's not allowed. Playfulness matters. Play is like oxygen. It's all around you. You just don't notice it until it's gone. We need more play in the world. So to finish, 30 seconds of your time, please. I want you to imagine you've got a big empty bowl in front of you and you fill it with Rice Krispies, Ricicles. Do we all know what that is? Fill it with that cereal, the little puffed rice. I would describe it as dry, plain, beige, pale, boring, quiet. Until you add what? Milk. And then what happens? They snap, they crackle, they pop, they fizz, they bang, they whiz. Do you know what they also do? They rise, they float, and they begin to dance in the bowl in front of you. Interestingly, if you don't eat them quickly, they turn to mush, they go soft, they go soggy. Over time, the milk turns bitter. You won't want them, and neither does anybody else. There is an analogy here to finish on. See the Rice Krispies? That's your job. The job part of the job, which means you are the milk. And if we don't get stuck in, devour it, top it up, refresh it, whack some sugar on it, just bear in mind you're not Willy Wonka, but sometimes we have to sugarcoat things, because if we don't, it turns to mush, it goes soggy, it goes bitter. You won't want it, neither does anybody else. So other than thank you for your time, other than hopefully I offered you something a little bit different today, some food for thought, I have 3 words for you. Be the milk.